There are two cities in this world. You have the city of God, and you have the city of man. And this is not an original idea of mine. This is an idea, actually, that Augustine coined. Augustine of Hippo, not the hippo, the animal, but the city in North Africa. And Augustine coined this idea way back in the days of the Roman Empire. He actually wrote a book called The City of God, in which he talked about, if you look in Genesis, you will see these two cities that exist from the fall of man. In fact, they exist from the very first murder, which, if you are familiar with Genesis, you should know is the story of Cain and Abel. And if you remember, Cain became jealous of Abel because God accepted Abel's sacrifice, but he didn't accept Cain's sacrifice. And so therefore, Cain, out of jealousy, decided to club his brother out in a field one day and then try to play stupid when God actually confronted him over the whole issue of murder. Well, of course, Cain gets found out, Cain gets banished, and what's really interesting is once Cain is banished, he goes and he builds a city out in the wilderness, out far away from everything else. And then if you kind of look through the different genealogies of the different names who appear in Genesis, you'll notice that almost all those people end up building cities. And those cities and those cultures become all the great civilizations of antiquity and often become the people that Israel was enemies with. That's because they are city of man cultures. And one of the reasons why all of those cultures, including the Mesoamericans who are all the way on the other side of the world, the reason why all of those cultures built these pyramids or built huge towers, like say the Tower of Babel, was because they wanted to return to God. They wanted to somehow return to Eden. So maybe they didn't so much want God, but they certainly wanted the garden, and they certainly wanted heaven, and they certainly wanted eternal life. They just weren't sure about actually having to submit to Yahweh. And so they tried to build these fake mountains as a way to meet God on their own terms. That's why you see pyramids, and that's why you see towers or huge mountain-like structures in every place from India to China to Mexico to Egypt. It's a common impulse of man to somehow return to the garden and to somehow make it to heaven.